Hello, and welcome to Book of the Mouse Club, episode 89, Tuesday, April 25th, 2023.
Morning, monsieur.
Where are you off to?
The bookshop. I just finished the most wonderful story about a beanstalk and an ogre and...
That's nice. Marie! The baguettes! Hurry up!
I'm sorry, but how can one possibly pay attention to a book with no pictures in it?
My dear child, there are a great many good books in this world without pictures.
I almost bounced clear out of the book. Some bouncing, huh?
Come home or make myself known.
Jane Thaddeus Turtle, Esquire. Have you never met him? You will find his story in this delightful little book, The Wind and the Willows.
I've come to return the book I borrowed.
Finished already?
Oh, I couldn't put it down. Have you got anything new?
Welcome back. I'm your host, Courtney, and I am joined, as always, by the Edgar Eagle to my Ophelia Owl, my lovely co-host, Emily.
Hello, listeners, and hello, fellow patriots. We have an exciting show today, and like our author's book dedication, today's episode is dedicated to all of our current and former cast member friends.
Yes, joining us today is Natalie Keller Reinert, our very own VIP tour guide to America the Beautiful theme park, the fictional setting of her novel, You Must Be This Tall. Natalie is an award-winning author of more than 25 books. Notable to her experience writing this book, though, is her near decade of experience as a Walt Disney World cast member and many more as a fan of Disney in general. She enjoys Disney history, particularly Disneyland, the Walt Disney Studios, and the work of Walt and his early Imagineers. We are so excited to discuss this shared love of these topics and how they influence this must-read novel for theme park fans. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you, and welcome to America the Beautiful, fellow patriots.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for making your book so accessible to our listeners this past month. We've had people reach out to us and tell us they bought the book. One of my friends reached out to me today. She's a former cast member as well. We were on Disney College program together, and she was so excited when she read my Goodreads review that she had to buy the book. We're going to get to talk about all of our cast member experiences. So instead, to help us get to know you a little bit better, we'd love to know what is your favorite attraction at either Walt Disney World or the Disneyland Resort?
All of my favorite attractions are gone. Because I closed down every land that I've ever worked at. I used to love listening to Barnstormer. I never really enjoyed riding it, but I really liked the sounds that it made because I worked in Toontown for so long. And when I used to take my son to Disneyland, because that was our park that we didn't know the backstage of, we were big Heimlich's choo-choo train fans. So it's a pretty painful memory that that's gone. Our favorite ride now, maybe just good old Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. And you can probably guess that if you've read the book. I have a real soft spot for Frontierland.
Yes, but Big Thunder Mountain at Walt Disney World or Disneyland?
Disneyland.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to give it all to Disneyland. I like mild over wild.
Mm-hmm.
And, anything that's historical I'm just all about that.
Very fun. Well, an excellent choice. And yes, very clear to anyone who has read the book that you are a fan of Frontierland. But we want to start at the very beginning of the book. We loved that you dedicated this book to the people running the rides, making the burgers, stocking the t-shirts, sweeping the floors, and dancing in the parades. You are the heroes of this fairy tale. So why was it important to you to write and dedicate this story to theme park workers?
This is about theme park life, but more than that, it really was about every drop of sweat that I put into being a cast member, and that the people that I cared about, the effort that they put into their jobs as well. It can be unsung, and I know that the theme park community tries really hard to people used to bring me the most interesting gifts, and I have a box of handmade cards from guests when I was a Polynesian manager and people that I saw regularly. But you can get mixed and lost in the shuffle really easily too. And every single person at every single theme park is, maybe not everyone's giving 110%, and that's okay, but everyone is an integral part of the pieces that make up these, so-called magical or wonderful vacations. So we owe everything to the cast members and the team members of the parks.
So like you were saying, like us, you also have experience working for Disney. So we'd love to know more about your roles and how your cast member experience then informed the story for You Must Be This Tall.
Well, my first role was in merchandise, and I worked in merchandise for a really long time. Actually, I did two stints that all added up to almost 10 years. I worked mostly in merchandise, and I worked in hospitality as a concierge. And but it never equaled. I was always kind of chasing my first role, which was in Frontierland as a cast member way back in the days um, before many things, any insider things like coordinators and stuff like that. It were just like a bunch of people with not enough managers running around trying to keep up with what was going on. The amount of times I had no idea what was happening around me is astonishing to think about. But we had so much fun.
No, that definitely comes through.
Yeah, I was in my early 20s. I had a small child, and everyone thought I was a CP until they found out I had a small child and I was married and lived off property. So I started the same weekend as a ton of CPs, and I just fell naturally into their group. And it was amazing. It was such an inmates running the asylum experience back then.
I love that description.
It was. I mean, virtually no one in charge half the time, especially when you consider, like, for us at the time, Frontierland and Liberty Square were one zone with one manager. And so you might have a manager in Splash Mountain, and you might be taking something to Haunted Mansion, for example, and sneaking around in the wrong costume and things like that. It was just insanity all the time. I loved it. It's so much fun.
And it definitely comes through within the book. I'd like to take the opportunity for maybe each of us to answer something related to the book, since we have cast member experience. Were there moments within the book that resonated for each of us? Certainly, Natalie, you wrote it, but I'd love to hear from Emily and get a chance to weigh in, if that's okay, before we turn it back to you.
So I'll show you, Natalie, you can see on our screen here. I went through and I did a lot of tabbing. This is a new thing for me as a reader. Tabbing books is a new thing I'm getting into. Thank you, Book Talk. So my blue tabs here are all the things that, as a former cast member, I was like, I remember that, or like just resonated with me. And then all my pink tabs were like plot points and like the conflicts that workers were working through. But the very first thing that I tabbed and highlighted, I'm highlighting now too, everybody, was from a chapter from Tabby early on when she was having to deal with some of her older coworkers, the Lifetime Patriots, I think they were called, like the 30-year Patriots. And she says, quote, "If you went too long without taking time to visit as a guest to play in the park, as they call it, you got bitter and miserable and mean." And I had a shorter experience as a cast member. I only completed my college program, but I was in the park every single day because that was important to me. And I definitely got to understand what I learned in training and how that transferred to the guest experience, being a guest sometimes in the parks. But that also, just like Tabby, like kept me excited going to the parks. Like I worked in entertainment, but I would go visit my friends in entertainment. I would seek out more meet and greet opportunities and watch every parade and every show. And that made me even more excited sometimes to go back to work. So that resonated with me, that it's important as a cast member not only to work, but also to play and enjoy the very unique work environment that we had.
I always think that part was huge. We would find that when we would work in other locations, maybe, or in the morning if we were used to working at night, with people who they would laugh if you said, Have you played in the park lately? And they'd say, I haven't gone through the front entrance of this park in 25 years. And you're like, it shows, like, because you clearly don't want to be here. Like that was the refresher. That was, I'm going to change out of my clothes as soon as I'm done with my shift, and I'm going to go run around for an hour before I go home. Like that's the perk.
What about you, Courtney?
For me, not as positive, more, I won't say triggered, but of course the title, You Must Be This Tall. I worked at an attraction with a height requirement, Space Mountain. You must be 44 inches to measure up to that. So a little, maybe within the last third of the book, Sonia she's stuck at greeter repeatedly and finally has an encounter where a child is not tall enough, but of course his family insists that the child had ridden before. They rode it yesterday, and that felt very familiar to me. So a lot of the different, conflicts, of course, that cast members have encountered, though how they were handled or escalated to the manager. And I was like, oof, taking me back to some of those moments for sure.
I felt like there were a lot of those when I revised this book constantly over the course of like 5 years. And I did feel like I had a lot of conflict that I needed to counter with all of the good times, because I didn't write the book because it was difficult. I wrote the book because it was different. Because it wasn't something that most people would ever get to experience. And I mean it when I say get to experience, not like have to experience. It was not a sentence to be a cast member.
So when I wanted to also bring up, so I think this was something that I never got to do in my role, because in entertainment, very few of us we were like Ariel, we don't get to use our voices. But one that made me kind of laugh, and Courtney, or for both of you working in other roles and operations, the ability to say the word no. You had some things in here where, whose chapter is this?
Probably Antonia.
Yeah, Antonia, when she's talking about her ambitions to want to move up into leadership, get to wear her own clothes in the park. But she was like, I just really want to be able to tell that occasional guest that no, they can't do something. And that also resonated with me, because I had to rely so much on my manager staff and my supervisors and leaders for the day to do that for me, since my voice was taken by the evil sea witch Ursula. And those moments where your leadership had your back and told a guest no when they couldn't do something that was a little too much. Sometimes in entertainment, I was working at Chef Mickey's, and this family was livid that Donald didn't come to the kitchen that day. All right, he was needed in other places. It was holiday season. Characters are all over the place greeting guests, and they just didn't have Donald. They had 4 other friends they got to meet, but not number 5, the number 1 duck. And they were refusing to pay for their meal. They were going to cancel their annual pass. They wanted to leave without paying. And the manager was just like, no, you've met 4 other guests. You've been here for an hour and a half because we have your seating time. And we were just like, yes, stick up for the workers. It was awesome. And it was just like that small moment of pride that I don't think everyone recognizes in a workplace. That just ability to tell someone no.
Yeah.
Is really powerful.
Yeah, it's really rationed there. That was, early on when I was moving up, that was the purview of management. Management was allowed to say no. Cast members could go as far as, let me call my manager. There wasn't any in between there. And standing up for cast members is awesome, and was one of my favorite things to do. And one of the last nights before we closed down in 2020, somebody just tried a ridiculous scam on me in my location, and I all but told her to get out, and she went off on me. And one of my CPs was like, Natalie, she was so mean to you. I said, then I pulled, I was wearing like a collared shirt, and I was like, you see this shirt? This shirt says, be mean to me. Leave my cast members alone. Like, I can take it.
I love that. Well, I'm sure there are a lot of moments that influenced you, but is there any moment in particular that you wanted to talk about that you channeled into this book?
Oh, I should have asked you for a roster of questions beforehand. There are so many. When I read through it, I am reminded again and again of things, things that I drew it directly from real life. Like Antonia, when her first chapter opens and she's sitting in the stockroom downstairs, her inner conversation is about only being able to take so much time on stage after 5 years. You can still love your job, but maybe not really want to do your job anymore. You just want to be downstairs in the quiet, organizing things. And that was 100% the way I felt within a year. I just wanted to be in my stockroom in the tunnel, putting tape on the shelves and writing what went on the shelf. It was so calming.
Yeah, that opportunity to complete a task
Oh,
without interruption, without
oh,
was it I think she was also like listening to music, so that little bit of freedom of like I can put my earbuds in. This is something I can do,
one thing that's
not facing
yours.
guests.
Yeah,
Mhm.
one thing that is yours and isn't piped in or issued to you can feel enormous in a situation like that. Because you agree to sort of hand over your identity and say, I'm going to take on this identity that you have issued to me with a barcode, and I'm going to, for 6 to 10 or 12 hours, this will be my identity, and I will resume whoever I was whenever I get outside. And that identity that you take on inevitably rubs off on you to, the point where you're listening to wishes in your car. Why? And
I still do,
I
like
know.
weekly.
I do too. I ride my horse and I'm listening to Epcot, or I'm listening to Illuminations pre-show music while I'm riding because I find it calming. Like, what happened to me? That show's gone. Move on, Natalie. I can't. Uh, so yeah, any tiny measure of your own personality from like the before times can feel like a little bit of a win.
So, since we're talking about Antonia and I brought up Tabby, Courtney brought up Sonia, let's talk about your cast of Patriots and the annual pass holders who come to America the Beautiful, and how they encompass. What I really enjoyed about this book is that diversity of characters and cast members. We have Tabby, who's like the new kid on the block. She's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to go. And then, like you said, all the way to Antonia, who's been there for 5 years. She's looking for that change. So tell us about your cast of characters. We have Tabby, Antonia, Sonia, Nick, Nate, and Martin.
hmm Well, some of them got pulled from other projects that I was working on over the years because I really did want to fill in that sort of full rainbow of who I knew and who I'd hung out with and who I'd been at the parks. So you had Martin. It was an interesting one because I had written a story years ago about a man who couldn't leave the Orlando area because his wife, who had passed away, was friends with Cinderella, and he felt like locked in to Orlando. And it wasn't really going anywhere. It was just a story I was writing back before I really started writing novels. And so I had this idea in my head of this man who loved the parks, but he wasn't really sure he was in love with the parks. He just felt this deep connection that he couldn't quite shake. Um, and then, Nick is he's the CP, the intern that just has shown up and is making everyone crazy, and he's like fluffy and just won't stop. Very common character, I think. um and then you mentioned Nate, who is the blogger, and I think the blogger is a really important person. I think you can't write anything about just about anything without mentioning influencers or people that are trying to make a quick buck off the internet. And Nate's a decent enough guy who makes some mistakes in the name of clicks. Um, and and then you have your cast members who all have their different motivations. And I think that makes up the only thing. I didn't put anybody in from, corporate or management, but there's sequels. And it would have been an interesting challenge to add a manager in because there's a weird level of distrust that goes sort of up the ranks and from an hourly person to a person sitting in an office. The sort of layers of trust get thinner and thinner. Like it's a very uneven place in those respects. So there's something there. But that's what sequels are for.
Ooh, very, very promising.
So with this cast of characters, I kind of want us all to have this discussion. Which character do you most identify with? Courtney, who did you feel like resonated with you the most?
Sure, I would have to say Sonia, probably because she was the attractions cast member and that was so aligned with my experience. Now, I would not be one to find some evidence and sell it to a blogger. That is not within my wheelhouse, but I did like that she was spunky, she was gutsy, she was going to stand up for the people that she cares about, so I admired those traits within her. So really, the attraction experience drew me to her. What about you, Emily?
I think Tabby for me, mostly because out of the three of us here, definitely my theme park experience was the shortest. So I think I still had that very bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, but also really afraid to break rules and get termed on my program. And we see that with Tabby a lot, that she's trying to fit in with a lot of people, but most of her friends have more experience in the parks other than Nick. He's still kind of on that newer end, but she's trying to find that line of keeping the fantasy and the fun of working in a theme park, but also takes the rules very seriously because she's afraid of losing that role. And I knew I was there for a short period of time. I had a very coveted role in entertainment, and I was very afraid of what that would look like. The phones in backstage areas was like a big thing that was part of my life, especially because they were afraid of the magic getting out. And I was always like, is my phone like very clearly showing that I'm not taking a picture right now? Right. I'm checking the time and I'm checking my schedule. I'm texting my roommate, like I'm not taking a picture, I promise. So I resonated with a little bit of her anxieties of I'm trying to show that I'm a really good cast member, but also just her excitement to, I would work a 10-hour shift, but then go play in the parks for 4 hours after. So that concept of I still love being where I am. So I resonated with her, because I was on that level. What about you, Natalie? Who's someone that you particularly...
I love that because, I mean, when I started writing, Tabby was the first character I started writing. And so I definitely pulled from what it felt like for me when I was in her position. And, I followed all the rules stringently. And it wasn't just that, there wasn't just a concern that if you don't follow a rule, you could get in trouble. There was always like, the rules felt really important. And I'll always have that concept that those rules, especially in the old days where the cell phones and things like that, you couldn't even mention that cell phones existed when I started in Frontierland. And that felt important to me. That felt like we were doing something huge that nobody else was doing. We were pretending we were the Old West. My goodness. To the point where we were confusing people. And I respected that. Antonia obviously is the person that I most resembled as I was writing it. She's a person who has seen a lot. She's made some decisions. They haven't always been kosher, but she's done what's best for her, and in this case for her cat, to make sure that everybody is happy. And she can move up. Like, she has ambitions and she wants to stay with the company and she wants to be somebody important in the company. And I really wanted that. That was big to me. And when I remember when I got through that leadership casting call and I got that blue ID, because back then blue IDs were just for managers. I was like, I'm somebody at the Disney company, and that's all that matters.
I thought she was probably, even though I identified with Tabby, I think she was my favorite character to read. Mm-hmm. Because I did really like you said, that conflict of you have ambitions to move up. And I talked to many of my cast member friends, because while I was at DCP cast members wanted to become full-time. Like, everyone has an ambition to move forward, most cast members I encountered. But like you said, that balance of with moving forward, though, comes that level of trust of the further you get away from frontline operations, how much do you care? And she was in that middle ground where she got some of that responsibility and had access to those managers who weren't as much on the front lines, but she still was with her Patriots. Mm-hmm. And that is a tough conflict because you want to make change, but now she's also starting to empathize with some people in the business or more on the office side too, of like, well, this is their job that they have to do because they're getting told from higher up. So like that trickle down effect. And I really enjoyed that conflict, because I think that was very humanizing, that we don't often see, because it's very easy to just be like, I don't, in any job, to be like, oh, my manager, I don't like who I work under. But they can also be your best ally if you have a very good one as well.
One of the things that I tend to do with any of my books, no matter where they're set, is I very rarely will villainize the villain, or really point out that there's a villain. There's a side to every story, with a very few, there are some exceptions. But in my books, I like to show that push and that pull, and that there are reasons for everything, and the conflicts that arise from when your reasons are, butting heads constantly. I think that's fascinating. And that's something that you see every single day in a workplace that is as big and as nuanced as like an entertainment park or a restaurant or a hotel. Like there's always this big push and pull. What's good for them? What's good for us? What's good for our customers? What's good for our investors? Like not everybody can win. So how do you keep everybody's loyalty when you can't let everybody win? It's interesting.
Yeah, that conflict was definitely at play and kept me turning pages. But something else I loved, we've talked characters, I would love to talk setting, and that is America the Beautiful theme park. Let's dive into that and what led you to create this imagined park.
I love Freedomland USA.
Tell me more about that.
So Freedomland USA was the theme park that C.V. Wood began after he ran off from Disneyland. He was one of Walt's senior Disneyland sort of, I can never remember exactly what his title was, but worked very hard on opening and presenting Disneyland. And then he took off, started his own company, and he built an America-themed theme park in the Bronx, in what is now called Co-op City, called Freedomland USA, where every single day you could see the Chicago Fire get started. You could witness the shootout at the OK Corral. It was just, I've always been fascinated by Freedomland, especially because I lived in New York City for a while in between my Disney stints. And the idea of a place as depressing as Co-op City, which is named for the tall housing towers there and the mall that used to have a Barnes and Noble in it, used to be a theme park with a Mississippi paddle wheels, and shootouts. And I just loved that. So that was where the concept for an America-themed theme park came from. I lifted that directly. Thanks, C.V. Wood. And then I originally put it in, I want to say it was originally set in Virginia. And then because I know Virginia, because I'm from Maryland, and I like to write about places I know really well.
Yay, Maryland.
Right? And then I decided winter was too much of a problem. So I moved it to Georgia, just for a place that wasn't Florida.
Very much like Walt Disney. We can't do it north of a certain point.
Yeah. And I based the original, I said it was a regional park, sort of like Cypress Gardens here in Central Florida, which is now Legoland. And that then this TV promoter who had Walt Disney-like ambitions bought the old regional park and turned it into America the Beautiful with its American-themed lands. I don't remember if I said lands or regions or what I called them, but that's the gist of America the Beautiful. And I wrote little marketing copy for all the different places in it, which was so much fun.
I could tell you were having fun with it. I loved having that. Fun.
People were like, how did you write that? I worked in marketing and in theme parks and in tourism for so long. It was like breathing.
Well, it worked. I was sold. Like I understood every land, what it was looking. So it really helped with the imagery of getting to picture this park. You talked about your experience in Frontierland, Old Dodge City. I think that came through.
Right.
Had a lot of Frontierland vibes.
Yeah. It was a struggle not to just write about Frontierland because, I started the book, I guess now it would be 6 or 7 years ago. And it just sort of developed over time. And it wasn't always necessarily something that was going to be, something I could release to the public. So I had to keep going back and changing and coming up with my own concepts and things like that. But things that were really fun to come up with, like the names of the stores. I think there's like Professor Cloud's Curious Artifacts and Sam Sweet's Sweet Shop and Cowboy Cal's Good Grub. Those are a pleasure. Are you kidding me? So I wish they all existed. I would go to Cowboy Cal's Good Grub every single day.
Is there any attraction that you're dying to ride from your Imagined Land?
So I tease an attraction. I think it's called the Ghosts of Grand Central that I need to actually kind of come up with for the sequel because they're building it in the first book. And I'm not sure what it would be, but I think it's going to be amazing. And I have one called Sequoia. I think it's Sequoia Jeep Expedition, which is I just sort of tease that it's like riding in a Jeep, and I guess you go through like the redwood forests, and I enjoy imagining like waterfalls and animatronic bears leaping out at you, things like that. I think that would be really, really fun. I've just been writing a little bit. I'm writing like a related story for the sort of world, and I'm writing about Gangsters of New York a little bit, which is the other New York attraction. So that's kind of fun.
Emily, was there somewhere you wanted to visit?
So definitely need to take a ride on Grand Rapids. What was it? Sorry, Gold Rush
Rapids.
Yeah.
Which is like, yeah.
Because we spend so much time with the characters by that attraction. Tabby's wagon, her retail space is near that attraction. Sonia's there. That's Antonia's space. So I feel like I just have to ride it now that I spent so much time there. But I was also really intrigued by the Big Apple region, because in my head I was like imagining Streets of America, but give it everything that it should have had.
Exactly.
And to me that would have been so fun. It's like I kind of imagine it as like the New York and like Mrs. Maisel, where like it's like the Hollywood that was but never will be, but make it the New York that was and also never will be, and give it that pizzazz. I feel like I'd have so much fun in that area of the park.
I wanted to spend more time in the Legacy of Heroes park across the way. I was getting a little bit of Disneyland, Disney California Adventure vibes from the well, you don't have all the seniority over there. And it's new, it's going through its own thing, so maybe we'll get to spend more time in the sequel based on how something panned out for one of our friends.
Maybe.
Before we get further into the book, because we want to talk about the plot points, we do also want to get to know you more as an author and about your writing and publishing process. So to create all these lands, not only to have a wonderful imagination, but I'm sure there was some research involved. So can you tell us a little bit about what went into researching this book or creating or laying out? You talked about making marketing plans. Like, how did this book come to fruition?
A lot of the research comes from really from listening to podcasts, like many, many, many podcasts, and just sort of letting all of those stories filter through my subconscious. I've always listened to, like Jim Hill and Len Testa on the Disney Dish. So there's always good historical stories and sort of like silly little asides, about errant things that happen in the parks and maybe weren't supposed to happen. And I just I don't necessarily remember these things, but they just kind of filter around in my brain. And anything historical that I can find. So listening to the retro WDW show is really great. Although one time I was listening to that in earbuds while I was taking a walk on Universal property, and it was the one about the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And they played audio from it, and it was like it made an electric shock, like buzzing noise. And I realized two things: that that was the part that had terrified me when I was 4, and that was why I was afraid of electricity in general, was from the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So sometimes you inadvertently learn things about yourself while you're doing book research. And I am afraid of electricity. And I am afraid of the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ride, both of those things. So there was that. And then, the process, like I drew a map. I have a map of the park. that's drawn in pencil in a moleskin notebook, and it's actually on my Patreon. I posted it there for the people, because Patreon readers read this book like 3 or 4 years ago, but not the final version. And so I have a hand drawn map of the park, and I would love to do more with those things, but it's just a question of time because this is a side project for me. This is not my full-time job. My full-time job is writing horse books about horse people. So, but this is what if horses are my full-time job, then Disney history and nostalgia is like my main hobby.
Well, it's a good hobby to have. I've just realized, we've certainly talked to a lot of different authors, but you're only the third fiction author that we've talked to, the other being Kevin Perger of Defunctland and Ridley Pearson of the Kingdom Keepers series. So you are in phenomenal company here. But we don't really get to talk about, like creating characters. So I would love to know more about how you go about writing multiple points of view. Like what methods do you use to organize your story and the different character plot lines?
Multiple points of view is hard. Let me just tell you. I have gray hairs from all of my multi-POV stories. That's what it comes from. The wise person would probably have more outlining done and maybe some spreadsheets. I don't know. I wrote this book by revising and rewriting again and again and again, and that meant going back to the beginning and making notes for myself, maybe as I read through something, and then going back and inserting things that had come up. If something came up in chapter 23 that needed to be foreshadowed in chapter 3, then I made a note. You got to go back and fill this in. And if characters' hair color changed or names changed or something, or I've never been clear on the New York region's name because I think I changed it like 5 times and I still have to check and see what it is now. And I changed one entire region's name right before I released the book because someone said, maybe this isn't the right name for that area. And I said, maybe you're right. And so I went through and changed it. And I didn't realize that until I was flicking through it a few days ago. And I said, oh, that's right. I changed that name. Completely forgot. So the short answer is multi-POV is hard and you should be very organized about it. And the long answer is that it's hard and I'm not organized about it. And I go through a lot of hell that I should not put myself through when writing it.
It does not show at all.
I think this is the first multi-POV I ever wrote. And I don't typically write in third person either. So it was a sort of a double whammy of both challenges for me. I like stretching myself, but I can see in many places, I can see that I did start writing this years ago before I sort of simplified my sentences. It was always a sort of an indulgent book for me because it was my hobby book, right? It wasn't the one anyone was waiting for. I always have people waiting on books and they have expectations of what my writing should be like. And this was the one that was just for me. And when I released it, I didn't do anything about it. Like I didn't have like an email campaign or ads or anything. I said, this book was just for me. And if I don't release it, I will never stop writing it. So I'm going to release it and see what happens.
Well, speaking of that release, you both wrote and published this book. So that's an interesting transition that we don't get to talk to a lot of authors about. Most people have another editor who then kind of picks up and starts that process.
It's Theme Park Press. I just feel like a lot of what we talk to is Theme Park Press. So this is fun.
Yeah, Theme Park Press is great.
But how did you transition going from writer to editor and publisher mode? Like, how does that work?
Well,
that mindset, like, how is that different?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's something that I do regularly. I release 5 or 6 books a year under my main business. And I transitioned from working consistently with an editor to I know exactly, what I'm doing when I write a book. And so I don't have to spend that extra time. I have one sort of silver bullet for skipping over having a sort of full-time editor, and that are my alpha readers. So the concept of an alpha reader is that they read something the second you write it. And my Patreon, which is, again, mostly horse books, but people who generally will read literally anything that I write. And there's a huge overlap between horse people and Disney people, which is a fun fact.
Also, wrestling. It's like a surprising overlap.
Yeah, it is. There's a Venn diagram there of wrestling and horse people in Disneyland, and I'm only in the Disneyland
That's
and
fair.
the horse people one.
No worries.
Now that could be a story.
But I have a lot of people who read my work regularly and aren't afraid to give me like immediate brutal feedback, and we have an understanding with each other. And that's really where it comes from. For me to write in such a very tight niche as I do with my horse books, I would have to change my business structure to like always have an editor and things like that. And it just wouldn't work. And it's just not necessary at this point. So this book just sort of fell into the same routine. Once I decided I was done with it, it fell into the same routine as all of my other ones, where I just had people read it and say, in chapter 8, this happens, but in chapter 9, you said this happens. Right. I'm on it. I got it. And these are people, I can give them a book and they'll read it in a couple hours and get back to me.
That's awesome. I'm glad you have such a strong community. And if you will indulge my horse pun here, we have certainly learned this is not your first rodeo. So what did you learn from writing those other texts that helped you with You Must Be This Tall?
Well, a lot of structure, obviously, but probably just the ability to pick up those missed plot threads. I think dropping a plot thread for me is the mistake I'm most likely to make. And so I've learned to read really carefully and jot down when I've got some sort of subplot, some sort of thread wandering off on its own, and go, you need to find the end of that, or you need to delete this. And that's a huge part of my final revision, is going, right, this didn't go anywhere. You need to go delete that half a chapter. It means nothing now. That's really important. Sometimes you could tie it up, but it's like, what's the point? It's just take it out. Just lose it. It's not important.
I imagine that can be very hard, though. You're like, I labored over this and I was invested to some degree.
Definitely. I write in Scrivener, and Scrivener doesn't actually delete anything. It puts everything into a trash folder.
Oh, nice.
And this manuscript has an extraordinary number of deleted folders. Unbelievable.
It's like a trash dumpster.
Yeah, it was like there's probably an entire third of another book, which is the more of any. I'm, like I said, I know what I'm doing at this point. Like I just wrote a book in like, I don't know, 26 writing days. And it was a pleasure to write. It was pouring out. It happened. I sent it to proofreaders. They sent me back typos. I published it. I was done. It was great. But this book took forever because it's its own beast. And I was going in a whole nother direction. I have a chapter entitled Tabby's Pioneer Party that I'm not even sure there's anything in there, but I had titled it because I was going to write it. They were going to go to the beach. There's going to be this whole thing. Who knows? And then for a while, I thought maybe it'd be a trilogy. And I came up with titles. But then I decided not to. So, it was drama from start to finish, this book. It would never really fit into the pigeonholes until I said, right, I'm done. I'm going to have people read it and it's going to go out. Because I just didn't see any other way of ever finishing it.
Well, I think it definitely came together. Like you said, with the different following all those different sublines, that was something I really liked. That we're going to talk about this, our main controversy about the leaked theme park plans. But then we also had, like you said, Antonia's ambitions to move up in management. But then we also had missing merchandise bags. But all of those things did come together, and I think also showed the complexity, though, having those subplots. I think for a cast member book, for cast members, showing that there's so much going on in a day, that yes, you always have one problem, but there's usually 10 other problems that you're working through and smiling through. So that the system you have, it works, because I felt like all of those came together really nicely.
Thank you. That took a lot. And I rewrote that ending 2 or 3 times to get it all to come together. But my subconscious did a ton of that work. a lot of times when I have a really complex story in its final third and I don't really know how it's going to come together, I'll just go do something that does not require me to think about books, and it'll go ping, light will go on, and it'll show up. I just have to give my brain some space to work through it.
So I want to get to a lot of the plot in the book, because that is something I think that also drew us in, as all of us as cast members, is those experiences that cast members work through. And something interesting, like you said, you worked in theme parks at a time where cell phones were still kind of new, that everyone was using them, or that we didn't have quite the social media that we do now. But that's a big part of theme parks now, is social media, and that's prevalent throughout the book. So what role do you think social media has to play in the future of theme parks? And then how does that make its way into You Must Be This Tall?
Social media is a thing that, like most people, I'm super love-hate on it. I owe most of, my friends and my career to social media. And B, why social media? Why are you like this? It gives a lot of people a lot of influence into things they don't know a lot about. And I guess in that way, social media is all of us. I don't know if that's an answer.
No, I think it is fair, because it's what's driving a lot of the content in the parks, and I think how the parks respond to its guests. Disney has certainly, and Universal as well, even SeaWorld embraced the idea of a social media influencer. You see people who reach a certain status who get invited to come do events and things like that. It's a dangling carrot for one of the characters in your book.
It is, and
sure.
it's something that tends to be ill understood by people in charge, because they don't have time for it. Because sort of the more responsible you are and more likely to make these decisions, the less likely you are to have time to really know all that much about what's going on social media. And so I think about the woman, the Mickey Waffles woman, who she posts a picture of pancakes and it was waffles, or the other way around. And she, and a lot of these people have they have gazillion Instagram followers, but they have no Twitter followers, and so they just sort of post things to Twitter. But Twitter's where all the angsty, real diehard crazy fans are. That's, where I found my group. And and so you've got these different channels that have different attitudes. You can't win them all. There's just, don't even try. But there's no explaining that to people at upper levels, because they don't have time. It's like a kid explaining a video game to their parent. I'm like, why? Just go play it. Leave me alone.
Well, I loved that social media was at the heart of quite a few controversies within the book, but they really all originate from our park goer Nate and our patriot Sonia, and everyone's reactions to the leaked America the Beautiful plans for a new attraction. So why was that conflict in particular important to you to be a central plot point of this story?
Yeah, it just felt really, that's something that would happen. Do you know what I mean? I said to my husband, if this book had come out 3 years before, it would have been a smash, because theme park Twitter, Twitter itself was a different machine. And I feel like theme park Twitter was even then stronger than sort of the group of people that I talk to now. I'm not on it that much anymore. And it kind of bums me out, because we would chat constantly, all the time about nothing and everything. And it was great. And that was kind of who I was aiming the book at, right? And what's the number one thing that you would freak out about? A change? No change.
Well, it feels more timely than ever. I was thinking, but I'm surprised to learn you had been working on this for 5 or 6 years, because I'm like, this is giving me Splash Mountain overhaul vibes.
Exactly.
You're very clairvoyant.
The concept initially came, if you want to talk about personal experience, when back in 2006, Haunted Mansion closed for an extended downtime. And I worked in the area at the time. They put a wall in front of the entrance. So there was Yankee Trader, the shop that's now Memento Mori, and then there was a wall. And they deployed all of the attractions cast members to other locations, and they put 2 merchandise cast members in front of the wall. And it was our job to say, sorry, folks, Haunted Mansion is closed for 6 months or however long it was. And that sort of gave me the thought of what if half of a, what if something huge happened to a huge landmark attraction? And the other thing that influenced the concept was chatter about the Western River Expedition, which was, the big lost attraction that would have gone in where Big Thunder Mountain went in with but we got Pirates of the Caribbean at Walt Disney World instead. Uh, and so that was I was like, what happened if this whole section of the park was just shut down and something completely different was coming? And then it had to be a thrill ride, obviously, and I had also worked in Toontown whenever things changed there, and we got the princesses and then the fairies, and then that was almost immediately shuttered for something else, New Fantasyland. So I have a lot of personal experience with This Is Beloved. It is going away now. The Polynesian Fountain comes to mind. That's another one. This Is Beloved. It is going away now. How will you deal with it? Not well. Thank you for asking.
I think that's where Nate's character particularly comes in, using his blog, because that's the connection. I find Nate being the connection between the cast members and then people who regularly go to the parks. He explains, I tagged quite a few of his, I won't read them, but I tagged quite a few of his where he talks about why the parks mean so much to him. So when he leaks the story that Sonia gets him, and there's the protest going on in front of the rapids, and there's families who are like, why does this matter? What's wrong with the new attraction? And you have those two camps of park goers who are tried and true, and he goes off. It's an internal monologue of these people don't even know the history or the theme, and that can get to some diehard theme park fans. But then also these other families who are just happy to be there, or how many times, I forget which character talks about it. Maybe it was Antonia, that we get a little hurt, but then we end up loving these new attractions as well. We were really sad to see Great Movie Ride go, but I love Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway.
Sure.
So that conflict as well. So Nate coming in, though, using his platform, we see the pros and cons back and forth of social media. So he leaks the story, then the Patriots use his own platform against him to exact their revenge for making their roles more difficult. Do you think Nate's story is serving as a cautionary tale to theme park goers, and then what is it like writing his character as a former cast member?
Yeah, I think Nate is a person who let himself love a corporation too much. And maybe I relate to Nate more than anybody else. Because I feel that way, because I don't want things to change. I get upset when things change. I don't go crazy about it online because people would see that and judge me. But inside, I feel very sad because I don't like basically anything new ever. And I would like everything to stay the same. I would like it all to be the way it was in 2005 when I was new and having the time of my life. And the cautionary tale is maybe not to get so attached to things, not necessarily to think, the energy that Nate puts into protecting the old things of America the Beautiful could probably be better put into protecting canyons out west, or actual sequoia trees or something like that. He put it into a theme park that's been there since the 70s, and it's not his, and it's not a public asset, and there's nothing he can do about it. And so that can create a very frustrated kind of position that you're never going to dig your way out of. So it's can be a bit about where your values are, where your loyalties lie, and maybe making yourself grow up just a little bit and touching grass every now and then, I guess.
I loved how deeply complex each of the characters were. So that really did come through in a strong way. Of course, though, in the midst of these complexities, we have a love triangle surrounding Tabby between her initial affections for Nick and our sweet annual pass holder Martin, as well as some additional unreturned affection, one way, cited from Nate. Why was Tabby the right character to create that conflict around?
She was gentle. She was sweet. Tabby might have been the real princess of the story, or that she was a bit of a princess in a tower, but she had some deep down grit as well. I gave Tabby a weird backstory where she had come from a Bible college in Kentucky to get away from her mother, and her concept of reality was America the Beautiful. That was her idea of what the real world was outside of this little Appalachian town where she'd grown up. Was America the Beautiful. It's kind of a pick your poison kind of situation for Tabby. And she was the initial star of the book. She's the one that sort of sums up everything, maybe good and bad, about the best sort of patriot, somebody who um, loves the place, maybe not necessarily for the right reasons, and just wants to do her thing, man. She just wants to wear a comfortable costume and enjoy some air conditioning and make some kids happy. She's kind of perfect. Yeah. Yeah,
So
she's not asking for a lot.
But I think they're important things too, though, that she's asking for. Not a lot, but it shows there's so many simple things that can make a cast member or anyone, any job, that just make them feel appreciated, make them feel like they can do their job. And Tabby really exemplifies that.
Yeah. I mean, she just, her thing was she just wanted to get out of the heat for a while, was her main motivation for a while. She's just so hot.
I think we can all relate, spending some Florida summers.
She didn't want to leave, and she didn't want an office job or anything like that. She just wanted to be comfortable so she could, do her thing with the kids. That was all.
So, such a great book. We had so much fun reading it. Overall, what do you want readers to take away from reading You Must Be This Tall?
I really want people to just enjoy themselves and maybe feel like they've gone someplace else. If there's a lesson to be learned in it, then I always think that's kind of reader's business. But I do like to show multiple sides of the story, so I don't think that anyone in the story is all bad or anything like that. I think everybody has a redemption. And the arc is either in the book, or I think it's suggested, or maybe it's coming down the pike, that everybody's got a motivation for the stuff they do. Everybody's got baggage for the reasons they react to things the way they do. And I try to bring that out in all my characters. I like the baggage parts, I think, of our characters, like why we are the way we are. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, I said it before. I really did like how deeply complex they were. And this was the perfect book to read on my plane ride to LAX to head to Disneyland. Definitely got me in the mood for that. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I wish I was on my way to Disneyland. No offense, I'm having a great time.
No, that's okay. I mean, don't we all just always wish we were at Disneyland? But
all the time.
As we do wrap up, we do have 2 questions that we always like to ask our authors after an interview. And the first is that we are, of course, always looking to expand our Disney knowledge or add to our bookshelves. So do you have a favorite Disney book or books on your shelf that you would like to recommend to us and our listeners?
I absolutely love the Disneyland story. Sam Ganaway? Is that Sam Ganaway's book? It was put out by the Unofficial Guide, so it looks like one of the unofficial guides to Walt Disney World, or Unofficial Guide to Disneyland. But yeah, the Disneyland story, that's the whole title of it, is just a great look at the building of the park, Walt's involvement with it, the controversies with different members of WED. I think it's a wonderful intro to all the craziness that went into the Disneyland construction, for sure.
This is why we asked, because that one definitely was not on our radar and sounds fascinating. So why we always ask.
Wonderful.
Thank you for confirming that.
Another good one to read on the way to Disneyland. It's just something I have done. I reread it once on the way. I read it once at Disneyland Hotel by the pool, and I read it once on the way to Disneyland Hotel.
That sounds so lovely. And then our final question we always ask is, what advice do you have for aspiring authors?
Advice to aspiring authors. You have to write it. If you're aspiring, does that mean you haven't written it yet? Are you gonna write it? Are you gonna talk about it? Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. The best thing you'll ever do is finish it. Um, and if you don't do anything with that and you start and you write something else, that's okay. Just finish the first thing, do the thing, because the first one's the hardest one. My first published book is a teeny weeny little novella, and the thing took 2 years and half my actual, I think, life expectancy to get out of me. But it's out there now. And if people read it, they go, "Oh dear God." And that's okay. That's all right. I wrote it. It's done.
It's like exercise. You get stronger with time and
You do.
repetition. So
You do. People always say to me, "How do you write so much?" And I say, the more you write, the more you write. That is the most simple answer I can give you. I write 3,000 to 5,000 words 5 days a week. So it's not that hard for me to do. I mean, it's hard where I'm like, I hate writing, but I get up and I do it. Like anybody who hates their job gets up and does their job.
Well, we are grateful that you wrote it, and we certainly look forward to keeping our eye out for any sequel. In the meantime, though, we would like to share what we have next for our listeners. So if they'd like to join us in May for a celebration of Peter Pan, Walt's original 1953 animated film turned 70 earlier this year. And there's a new adaptation of Peter Pan and Wendy that arrives on Disney Plus very soon. So we plan to compare both of these to J.M. Barrie's original novel. But before that, though, people are welcome to keep up with us, Book of the Mouse Club, on Twitter and Instagram at Book of the Mouse, or email us with comments and ideas to bookofthemouseclub@gmail.com. Please be sure to leave us a review on iTunes so others may find our podcast and read and listen along with us. You can keep up with me, Courtney, on Instagram at GreatGuthsby, or on Twitter at Courtney_Guth.
And you can follow me, Emily, on Instagram and Twitter at the same handle, at Emily_McD. And Natalie, where can our listeners connect with you, and where is the best place to buy your books?
Well, you can connect with me. I have an Instagram and a Twitter specifically to talk about theme parks, which is ATB Lifestyler. ATB, of course, being America the Beautiful, and we all know what a lifestyler is. My books are available wherever you buy or borrow books. This book is under N.K. Reinert, not under Natalie Keller Reinert, for whatever that is worth. But it is also available from my shop, nataliekReinert.shop. And I believe that you can get the paperback and the ebook from there. Sometimes the paperback is back ordered, but I try to keep it in stock on my shelf in my living room, and I'll send that out to you.
And for our listeners with just a few days left, you can use code Book of the Mouse to save 30% on either the ebook, print copy, or both if you are so inclined. So thank you again for offering that up to them.
Yes. Oh, and I have one more thing I wanted to mention when it comes to socials, which I forgot, is the Substack, because I am serializing a new story set in America the Beautiful at my Substack, which is Imaginary Memories. For various reasons, it's called Imaginary Memories and not ATB Lifestyler. But I'm serializing a new story to go along with America the Beautiful's sort of universe. It's called Confessions of a Theme Park Princess. And it involves some of our entertainment friends. So there will be you can read the first 3 chapters will be posted on that by the end of April. And then chapters after that will be behind the subscriber wall. But yeah, there will be more.
Wonderful.
More.
We will be sure to include all of that in our show notes. But as we formally wrap up here today, as our guest of honor, you get to close us out with a quote. So what have you selected for us?
I have a little highlighted piece from Nate's first chapter here that I would like to share, because I haven't been to a theme park in several years, and I don't know when I'll be back in one again, but man, I love them, and I love the way they make me feel. And this is something that Nate shared, or is in Nate's first chapter, when he's entering the park for the first time as a pass holder and as a resident who doesn't have to go home. He wanted to skip, he wanted to sing, he wanted to waltz along with the tinny ragtime piano playing from invisible speakers somewhere in the bricks arching over his head. He was here. This was happening. He had made it. I moved back to Florida after 5 years in New York, and when I went back to Magic Kingdom, that was how I felt.
Oh, no, I think that is an emotion that many of our listeners, if not all, have felt. So thank you for capturing that so wonderfully. And of course, thank you for joining us here today to dive deeper into your work. We truly appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you very much for reading it and your interest in it.
The Mouse Club has no affiliation with the Walt Disney Company. The views and opinions expressed by hosts and participants are theirs and theirs alone. They do not represent the organizations or companies they happen to work for.